Subject down over here.
Come here.
I got him. Come here, baby. Come here.
I got possible suspect 14 when you're ready. White male, 6 foot to 6'2".
Who's the guy you saw? What did he look like? What is he wearing? So somebody up there said it was you.
No, none of us liked the idea, but none of us have actually heard him.
He's a good kid. Was a good kid. Love him to death.
It was supposed to be the start of a new chapter. A quiet Sunday evening in Navarre, Florida. A young father stepping out of his car. A 4-year-old waiting just inside the doorway, excited for her first overnight visit with him in almost a year. Colby Vinson had just returned from the grocery store, 2 bags in his hands, a week's worth of plans in his head. But as he approached his apartment door, something felt off. The breezeway outside his building was usually empty at this hour, and tonight the air felt oddly still, like the whole complex was holding its breath. Colby didn't know it, but someone had been waiting for him, watching from the shadows, tracking his movements down to the minute. When he reached the door, he set one bag down inside for his daughter, and he turned to go back for the others. And that's when he froze. A man he didn't recognize stepped forwards. There were no words exchanged or threats made, just a single deliberate movement, quick, practiced and mechanical. Neighbors later said they heard what sounded like a door slamming. Others said it was more like a firecracker. All anyone knew for sure is that the next moment, the grocery bags were on the ground, and Colby was on the cold concrete. Inside the apartment, his daughter called out to him, but he couldn't respond. It would take only moments for the first 911 call to go out, but it would take far longer for the truth to surface. Investigators could not have predicted what they'd find when they uncovered the chain of decisions that led to a complete stranger to drive 5 hours, to cross a state line, and to lie in wait for a young father he had never even met. As random as this might sound, it wasn't. But it didn't start at the apartment that night. This final chapter started 6 days earlier. Buckle up, because things really kick off towards the end of this one. Here we go.
Let's do this. Ow.
6 days before that night in Navarre, a judge delivered a decision that should have been fair and simple. A step towards stability for a little girl who at the time was caught between 2 parents. Colby Vincent had fought for nearly a year to see his daughter again. He showed up to every hearing, he showed up to every mediation, every request for evaluation. In fact, he did everything that the court asked of him. And finally, on March 12, 2023, the judge granted him what he'd been waiting for, 50-50 custody. Colby walked out to the courthouse relieved, hopeful for the future. He sent a text message to his family with the good news, and they described him as lighter than he'd been in months.
Hello, and today I'm going to teach you how to open up your mailbox. Now, it's a very simple thing to do. See, first you can walk, you can run, or you can jog, or you can ride your skateboard, or you can ride your bike. I'm gonna ride my skateboard. Let's go to my mailbox. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Going to the mailbox. Going to the mailbox. I'm going. I'm almost there.
But across town, someone else was having a very different reaction. Whilst Colby was celebrating, his former partner, 25-year-old Rachel Moore, was unraveling. Friends would later say that she had been made distraught by the court's ruling. Family members said that she wasn't simply upset, she was terrified of losing control. But the judge's ruling didn't take anything away from her. It only gave their daughter the chance to have both parents. Still though, that wasn't how Rachel saw it. Because almost immediately after the ruling, she picked up her phone. And then she contacted someone that most people didn't even know she still spoke to. Someone who had once been part of her family. Someone much older, someone who lived 5 hours away in Alabama. His name was Jason Curtis, and the messages that they exchanged that day, the tone, the timing, the things they said, all of it would later become very, very important. But back on May the 12th, nobody knew of any of this. Nobody knew that a single text message, sent just hours after the custody ruling, would set off a chain reaction. Before everything spiraled, Colby Vinson's world was simple. He worked hard, he loved being a dad, and according to everyone who knew him, that was one part of his identity that he really fought to protect. Friends described him as a kind of guy who would show up early, he would stay late, and he would make everyone laugh. Co-workers remembered him for his loud shoes, his bright smile, and the way that he talked about his daughter, Presley, like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. But for nearly 10 months, he barely even got to see her, and this wasn't because of a court order. It wasn't because he was barred from visitation. It was because, according to court documents, Rachel just stopped allowing contact without going through the legal system. Colby, though, did exactly what the courts expected of him. He didn't retaliate. He didn't try to take matters into his own hands. He filed, he waited, he showed up to every hearing, even when nothing changed. And through all of it, he just kept one goal in mind: just let me be her dad. His family remembers that time as the year everything went quiet. Because Colby wasn't the type of person to complain. He didn't lash out. He didn't wish to harm anyone. He just kept himself to himself, hoping that eventually things would work out. And on March the 12th, 2023, they finally did. The court saw no danger, no evidence of neglect, no reason to keep Colby from seeing his daughter, and so they granted shared custody, and Colby's first scheduled pickup was set for March the 19th. His family remembers how excited he was. Co-workers said that he was planning cookouts, he'd bought games, he wanted to take his daughter on walks on the beach, everything you might want to do with a 4-year-old who idolizes you and you idolize them. Even on that very morning, the day that he would pick Presley up for the first time in nearly a year, his family received a text from him. "Thank you, we're both happy." And those short, positive words would be the last that he ever sent. Because whilst Colby was preparing for a week of normal fatherhood, someone else was preparing for something very different. Someone who believed the court's decision was a threat. Someone who believed that Colby should not get that week, or any week thereafter. And because of that belief, a plan began forming in the background, quietly, quickly, and with a level of clarity that would later shock investigators. Nobody around Colby knew it yet, not his friends nor his family, definitely not Colby himself. But the very moment he won custody, the countdown had already begun. That same afternoon that Colby walked out of the courtroom relieved, Rachel Moore opened up her phone and sent a message that would change everything. She contacted her former stepfather, Jason Curtis, a man living 5 hours away in Coleman, Alabama. Their relationship wasn't close. They didn't speak regularly, but on March the 12th, she had one topic on her mind: the custody ruling. What she told him and how he responded is what prosecutors would later call the blueprint. According to testimony, the conversation shifted almost instantly from venting to something far darker. Jason wrote something that made investigators pause when they read it. A comment about coming down there and hunting Colby down. A normal person would treat that as a red flag, maybe even a threat. But Rachel did not shut this down. She didn't say, "No, stop." She didn't say, "I don't want that." Instead, she replied with something that prosecutors highlighted again and again: "Not much hunting. I have an address." And with that one sentence, Colby's safety was now gone. Jason responded by sending her a picture, and no, it wasn't a selfie or anything like that. Instead, it was of weapons, sharp weapons, firearms, a sword, and a caption that would later give jury the chills: "Take your pick." To prosecutors, this wasn't small talk. It wasn't simply frustration. What they planned next was not impulsive. It was not emotional. It doesn't even seem like they tried to hide it. This was deliberate and documented, and investigators would later say the most chilling part of all of this was just how casual they were. The messages between Rachel and Jason, they didn't read like panic. They read like premeditation, but there were still more details to come. Investigators later recovered 2 small pieces of paper from Jason's belongings. On them were notes, almost like scouting cards, listing Colby's height, weight, hair, tattoos, his car, workplace and apartment number. Where did he get that information, you may ask? From Rachel. She also sent him directions. She told him where Colby did his shopping and when he would have custody of their daughter, Presley. The more the two talked, the clearer the picture became. Gas money was offered, $50, a promise that everything would be fine, a reassurance that Jason just needed to take care of it. All of this happened in the days between the court case and March the 19th, and all of this was a trail of evidence. They laid out steps, concrete ones, deliberate ones, and while Colby spent his week preparing snacks, games, cleaning his apartment, and getting ready for the arrival of his daughter, Rachel and Jason spent theirs preparing for something else entirely. And by the time March the 19th arrived, the plan was not simply made, it was already in motion. March the 19th, 2023, a Sunday. Warm, quiet, and otherwise unremarkable, unless you knew that something was happening behind the scenes. At around midday, Jason Curtis got into his vehicle in Coleman, Alabama. He brought with him a .38 caliber Ruger, a handwritten note containing Colby's description and addresses, and according to prosecutors, a very clear purpose. 5 hours. That's how long the drive was to Navarre, Florida. 5 hours of interstate, 5 hours of rural Alabama, then into the Florida Panhandle. 5 long hours to think about what he was about to do. Along the way, county license plate cameras captured him passing through small towns. Crestview, Milton, silent yet reliable digital witnesses. At the time, nobody could have known the significance of those blurry images, but detectives would later say that those camera pings became the backbone of the timeline. Meanwhile, Colby was having a completely normal day. He picked up his daughter from the Publix parking lot. He sent his family the message. He bought groceries for the week, snacks, cereal, things that his daughter liked, and he carried them up to the apartment one armful at a time. He had no idea that a man was waiting for him. Jason arrived in Navarre while the sun was setting. He drove into the Cayo Grande apartment complex. He parked up, and then, according to prosecutors, he waited. He waited until the exact moment that Colby returned home with Presley. These details aren't guesses. Investigators could piece them together from surveillance footage, timestamps, and the physical evidence later recovered, including the shell casing found in Jason's home. At approximately 9:30 p.m., Colby carried the first load of groceries inside. Presley walked ahead of him. She was understandably excited. She hadn't stayed with her dad overnight in nearly a year. When Colby stepped back outside to grab the second load, Jason approached from the breezeway. The distance between them was only a few feet. Assistant State Attorney Mark Alderman later told the jury he walked up to Colby and fired one shot in his face. No struggle or chase, just a single, calculated, devastating act. Colby fell backwards onto the concrete. The groceries spilled. The lights from his apartment cast long shadows across the walkway. Inside, Presley called out to her father. Jason just turned, walked back to his car, and drove away. According to the testimony, within 30 minutes of the act, he called Rachel and told her, "You don't have to worry about it."
Sheriff's Office Emergency.
Hello, I just got off the phone with a family member that said that they just saw someone get shot at the apartments we live in, Cayo Grande.
Within just minutes of the 911 call, the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office descended on the complex. What they found would haunt deputies for a long time.
Subject down over here.
Come here, come here.
I got him. Come here, baby. Come here. Come here, honey. One of our guys took her. Who grabbed the juvenile?
Harbaugh had it.
She's what, 3-ish?
2 to 3, yeah. She's very young.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Colby was lying there, groceries scattered, his 4-year-old daughter sitting beside him, crying for her dad. Sheriff Bob Johnson later described the scene in blunt, emotional terms. To shoot somebody with their 4-year-old child right there, it goes beyond anything I've ever seen.
Hello. Did you hear anything?
199.
Literally, like, before I heard your guys' radio, I just heard people yelling.
Okay.
That was it. It sounded just like a man yelling.
Sorry, man.
That was it.
Okay. You didn't see anything or anything
Nope,
like that?
I've been sitting inside.
Did you hear anything that sounded loud like a gunshot?
Yes.
Oh.
I thought it was my trash can popping. Hey, how long ago did I say did the dogs go crazy?
Possible suspect 14 when you're ready. White male, 6 foot to 6'2".
Who's the guy you saw? What did he look like? What is he wearing? So somebody up there said it was you.
My granddaughter came to stay with her dad for the first night in every year. And
Is Colby okay?
Colby is not okay. Colby is deceased.
What?
So that's why this is imperative that we try to figure out as much information about what's been going on with him lately. In regards to custody, is there anybody that would have wanted to harm Colby in regards to that?
No, none of us liked the idea, but none of us have actually hurt him. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Detectives worked quickly. Witness statements, camera footage, phone records, and then the breakthrough. 2 days after doing what he did, Jason Curtis was tracked down and arrested in Coleman, Alabama. Inside his vehicle, investigators found what they believed was the murder weapon, and next to it a handwritten note containing Colby's height, weight, vehicle, workplace and home address. This was evidence that didn't just implicate him, it connected up the dots of the whole plan. Back in Florida, detectives interviewed Rachel Moore, and her story changed multiple times. At first, she feigned surprise, said she didn't know who could have done this. She even asked whether her daughter would be returned to her custody.
So we went to court and the judge had a death in the family and it got moved up. And then my side of the case wasn't even allowed to be seen in the court. And then they told me 50-50 sharing and I said, okay. And then I showed up, I dropped my kid off, and then at midnight I'm getting a call saying, hey, answer the front door. And I answer the door and there's deputies saying, hey.
What time did you drop her off?
6:30.
6:30? And where was that at?
Publix. But I knew to be there because...
That's in the bar?
Yeah, it says it right here. I got an email from my attorney that said this. We didn't have to communicate, we knew where, when. I just had to accept it, so I did. I was not expecting deputies to show back up at my house the same night.
But investigators already had her text messages. They recovered deleted conversations. They had the gas money payment and her directions given to Jason. They even had evidence of the promises she made. I'll pay you $50 for the gas.
Do you know what caused her to stop letting him see Presley?
He used to only have one off day, which was Saturday. So he would go get her every Saturday, spend time with her, and take her back. He then got his schedule fixed so that he could have like 2 consecutive off days. And he wanted Presley to spend the night. He got a little toddler bed for her and some other things, and she said no. And he was trying to just handle everything without getting attorneys involved, and she wouldn't let him see her, so we hired an attorney. And then once she was served, she cut off all contact.
By April of 2024, both she and Jason Curtis were charged with first-degree premeditated murder. Jason Curtis went to trial first. The evidence was overwhelming. Weapons photos, text messages, surveillance hits, the .38 caliber shell casing found at his home, and his own police interview.
Jason, do you think it's a weird coincidence that we're up here talking to you? I mean, I don't want you to
Not really, not after everything that was going on.
You don't think it's a surprise that we're up here talking to you?
Not for something like that, I wouldn't.
What do you mean for something like that?
Well, if he was killed, I'm sure he'll look into every angle possibility.
Right, but do you think it's a weird coincidence that you're in handcuffs regarding that?
Yeah,
What kind of information did Rachel share with you?
All she said was the court ruled in his favor.
Rachel was positive that the system and the government failed her, right? Her time of need.
Yeah.
So she calls her stepdad, who makes her feel comfortable who reached out to take care of her, right?
Do all I can.
So what did you do to help take care of her?
I'm not going to go to jail the rest of my life for something I did not do.
But you're gonna let Rachel.
If
That's
she's
how much you
guilty,
love her.
there's nothing I can do about it.
So it's an accident that we're sitting in front of you.
No, it's not.
Okay, so tell me why it's not an accident that you're in that chair right there in handcuffs.
Because you believe I shot somebody?
How'd you know the victim was shot? No one told you that.
They did. They told me that this morning.
Who did?
The guy that had me down on the highway, it was 69 highway when I was arrested. I said, what am I arrested for?
Murder.
Yeah.
A 12-member jury deliberated, and Judge Clifton Drake delivered the sentence. Life in prison, no parole. He was transferred to the Florida Department of Corrections and now serves his life sentence at a Panhandle institution. 1 year later, Rachel would face her own jury. Rachel was convicted as a principal to first-degree murder and of tampering with evidence. Judge Drake sentenced her to life without parole, housed at Laurel Correctional Institution in Ocala. A third person, Christina Moore, Rachel's mother and Jason's ex-wife, she initially faced charges of accessory after the fact, but in 2025, prosecutors dropped the case, citing new evidence that made the conviction essentially impossible. And so today, 2 people are serving life sentences, but Colby's family are left struggling to get answers. How did a custody ruling, something meant to give a little girl her father back, lead to a calculated 5-hour journey in a horrifying act that was meticulously planned through messages that the people involved believed would never be seen? For Colby's family, the loss is immeasurable. His mother, Megan, said it best. My son's last day on this earth plays in my head on repeat. I can't escape it, no matter what I do. And yet, through the heartbreak, they hold on to one truth, the same truth that Colby held on to every day. He just wanted to be a dad, and he was until the end.
If you want more tips on how to do everyday household things, just leave a comment in the section below. Bye!
Women influencers are also targeted, sometimes with fatal consequences.
Women who pursue any careers or hobbies as social media influencers should have the right to do so.
Justice for Sana Yusuf! Justice for Sana Yusuf!
In Pakistan, inside a modest house in Islamabad Sector G13-1, Sana's aunt heard it first. A sharp crack, quick and muffled. For a second, she thought it was just a balloon popping. There were still balloons in the house, left over from a 17th birthday party that had just happened. Her mother, Farzana, was nearby. She heard the sound too, but what came next told her the celebration was truly over. She heard her daughter, Sana, fall to the floor. The mother rushed towards her daughter's room, and what she saw on the floor would stay burned into her memory forever. Sana, her clothes stained with red, her chest unmoving. Farzana screamed for help. Neighbors came running. Someone grabbed car keys. They tried to lift Sana to get her to the hospital, but by the time they carried her outside, it was already too late. Somewhere between that bedroom door and the front gate, her story had ended. The person who pulled the trigger was already gone. Who was he? Why had he done this? The hunt was on. What nobody knew in that moment was that what happened to Sana was about to rip open something much bigger. Just hours before the events of this video, Sana was celebrating. In her last video, she stands beneath pastel balloons cutting a cake. She's smiling the way that someone with the whole world ahead of them smiles. There were no shadows or dramatic warnings here, just joy, just life, a beautiful moment all round. And yet, by the very next day, that same video would be flooded with comments saying rest in peace. So how can things shift that fast? How did Sana go from blowing out candles to becoming the centre of a national tragedy and a national conversation? Police would later say that that answer starts long ago, and it starts inside a dark mind. Before the headlines, the outrage and the protests, Sana was just a girl from Chitral who filled her online world with colour, culture and kindness. Her family had spent years serving their community. Her father, Syed Yusuf Hassan, was known across Upper Chitral as someone that people went to when they needed help, when they needed guidance or they needed to feel hope. So Sana grew up watching that, and she carried that same softness into her life online. Her videos weren't scandalous, they weren't provocative, They were really just joyful, chit-rally dresses, northern folk music, girls' education, moments of laughter over shared cups of chai. But in reality, she gave even more than she showed online. If she had brand deals, she donated those clothes afterwards. The money that she received from ads, she spent it on girls who couldn't afford books or tuition. She didn't brag, she didn't document the good that she did. She simply just did it because she wanted to. For her family, Sana was preparing for medical school, a girl who wanted to heal people, not just to entertain them. But the morning after she met her end, the news broke like a thunderclap. And within minutes, the first theory spread like wildfire. People were saying, honor killing. People online didn't pause, they didn't ask questions. They just took a theory and they ran with it. A 17-year-old girl visible on TikTok. Her time ended in her own home. It seemed to fit a pattern that Pakistan knew too well. Hundreds of women are killed every year for honor, reportedly at least 405 in 2024 alone. This means there are countless women whose names never make the news. Comment sections exploded. Must have been the family. Her videos brought shame. These girls forget our values. This narrative swallowed Sana in seconds. Her kindness, her dreams, her gentleness, reduced to a stereotype that people were all too ready to believe. But here's where things turned. Here's where that narrative broke apart. Police began investigating. They spoke to the family. They examined the scene, and quietly, firmly, the truth emerged. This wasn't honor. This wasn't even her family. None of this was rooted in tradition or shame at all. It was something else entirely. The real threat was not from inside her home. It was outside, watching, waiting, and getting ready to step into her world. The first hint of danger didn't come from Sana, it came from him, a 22-year-old man living hours away in Faisalabad. He was unemployed, and he was quietly developing an obsession. Police say that he started trying to contact Sana months earlier. Messages, offers and attempts to meet up, repeated offers of friendship, each one just ignored, each one an obvious no. But here's where this story starts to twist, because in his mind, no didn't mean stop. It seemed to mean try harder. Some people drift in and out of your DMs, they get bored, they move on. But not this man. He watched her videos constantly, he tracked her routines, he knew what city she lived in, he even knew her birthday, May 29th, a day that Sana spent surrounded by laughter, by that delicious looking cake, and by those amazing balloons. That strange man obviously wasn't invited to the party, but he still spent the day, travelling to Islamabad regardless. The next days were pretty quiet, at least that is from Sana's perspective. But for the man, his obsession was growing darker. It turned into entitlement, it turned into anger. By June the 2nd, he couldn't wait anymore, and he made his move. CCTV cameras later captured him wandering near her home. And this wasn't just once or twice, he did it for hours. Just a man pacing outside a house that didn't belong to him, looking for his moment to slip inside. The father of the house was out of the city, her brother was in Chitral, so only the women were home. The man did not knock, he didn't message to be let in. Instead, he forced his way into the home, straight into a home that had never invited him. And this was a moment where everything pivoted, the point where obsession stopped being digital, and it now became physical. When that man stepped through the door, he wasn't there to talk. He had already made up his mind about how this story was going to end. When the man crossed the threshold of the family home, the world outside kept on moving. Cars passing, neighbours cooking dinner, the evening settling in like on any other day. Inside that house though, time went into overdrive. It was a normal afternoon with nothing out of place. Then, Sana saw him, standing in her bedroom. A man that she had never welcomed in, now standing inside her home, inside her room, blocking the doorway, holding a pistol. Her mother heard the commotion, footsteps, a voice that she didn't recognize, a tone that didn't belong in their home. There was a brief confrontation, a moment where Sana tried to understand what was happening, a moment where this man could have turned around. He could have stopped, he could have left, but he chose not to. Police later said he pulled the trigger twice, both hitting Sana in the chest, close range and final. The same aunt who thought she'd heard a balloon popping now understood what that sound really was. She rushed towards the noise, but then the intruder turned the weapon on her too. He pulled the trigger once more, but this time the weapon jammed. A mechanical failure that saved her life. For a split second, that malfunction created a moment of strange silence, and it was just long enough for the man to flee. He didn't run away in blind panic. Instead, he walked out calmly with purpose, and he took something with him that was not his. Sana's phone, the device that he believed held conversations, messages, anything that he thought could twist this into a different story. He believed that deleting those traces might erase his role. It might change the narrative. It might hide his obsession. But nothing he did could undo what was already done. Back inside the home, Sana's mother was collapsing over her daughter. She was shouting her name, calling for help, calling for someone, anyone to bring her back. Neighbours carried Sana to a car. They tried to rush her to the hospital, but she was gone before they made it. By the time her father got the call, nothing in his life would ever be the same. Outside, the street was filling with sirens, neighbours whispering, people staring into a home that had just been full of birthday balloons hours earlier. And this story that would shake Pakistan was only just beginning. The moment that news of Sana's passing hit social media, the story exploded. Comments poured in fast. Shock spread across Pakistan, from influencers to students, from families who saw their own daughters in Sana. But while the country was grieving, the police were racing for answers. The Inspector General called it a blind case, saying that there were no clear leads, no known suspects, just a teenager gone and a man who had vanished into the city. So investigators began digging hard. They combed through 113 CCTV cameras, footage from streets, businesses, highways, tracing through every movement, and slowly, pixel by pixel, a figure began to appear. A man walking away from the house, then boarding transport, then leaving Islamabad. Less than 24 hours after the event, they found the man in Faisalabad. There, he had tried to disappear back into his old life. When the man was arrested, he confessed for what he'd done to Sana. This confession will become important later. The man was now in custody. Police recovered the weapon. They recovered Sana's phone. They recovered messages that he had erased, evidence he tried to destroy, and a timeline that he thought he could blur. Things online were heating up. Millions of strangers were choosing sides, some demanding justice, others blaming Sana for her own demise. In the days after Sana met her end, the streets of Islamabad filled with anger and grief. Activists, students, women and families all gathered outside the National Press Club, holding signs that read, "Saying no is my right," and "Women are not targets." Chants rose up against patriarchal violence and the culture of blaming victims. For many, Sana's passing wasn't just another case. This was the final breaking point. In a country where women are too often punished simply for being visible, the protest demanded immediate justice, systemic reform, and safety for every woman who dares to exist online. For days, the man in this story was simply a silhouette, a figure in CCTV clips, a presence pacing outside a house that wasn't his, an evil presence who pulled a trigger and then disappeared. But now we know more about him, and the truth about their so-called history, a history that wasn't a love story, it wasn't a friendship, it wasn't even a misunderstanding. It was something far more disturbing than all of that. Police say that the man had tried to contact Sana repeatedly, that he tried online, through messages, and then finally in person. He'd watched her videos obsessively. He'd learnt her routines. He travelled all the way from Faisalabad to Islamabad just to try and get close to her. When he learned her birthday was May the 29th, he made the trip early, hoping that she would meet him. She didn't, obviously, Why would she want to spend time with him rather than her family? And here's a part that Sana's family stresses. Sana never told them about him. She never mentioned any messages. She never reported being harassed. To her, he was just a stranger, totally unimportant, and nobody in her life. To him, though, she was something he believed that he was owed. Because remember, this was never a relationship. This wasn't reciprocated. This wasn't two people who knew each other. It was a physical embodiment of entitlement, which is so often violence. The man who did this was named Umar Hayat. He was 22 years old. After the arrest, the case moved quickly, at least on paper. Umar Hayat was placed on a 14-day physical remand. Police lined up the timeline, the weapon, the CCTV footage and the recovered phone. And then came the identification parade. Sana's mother and aunt, the two women who had seen him inside their house, had to stand face to face with the man who had just shattered their lives. They could identify him immediately. From there, the court extended his remand and then shifted him into judicial custody. Trial dates formed, statements were recorded, the paperwork stacked higher and higher. But then something happened that stunned the public. Despite previously confessing to the police at the time of his arrest, despite the recovery of the phone, despite eyewitnesses, Umar now stood in court and said, "All accusations are false, a not guilty plea." I don't know about you, but I see this as an extension of his entitled behaviour. The judge adjourned the hearing. More witnesses scheduled, more dates marked, more waiting. And while the legal process crawled forwards, Sana's parents could hold on to the only thing they had left, their daughter's memory. Their lives were now being swallowed up by a system that they hoped wouldn't fail her. But justice in cases like this is never quick, it's never simple, and importantly, it's never guaranteed. The case continues moving through the courts, and all eyes are watching at what happens next. Because what happens to Umar Hayat will echo far beyond Sana's family. It will speak to the whole of Pakistan, and whether the justice system is actually up to protecting girls like Sana, girls that will never get to grow up. In the days after Sana met her end, her bedroom stays the same. But now there's two main differences. Sana isn't there anymore, and there are bullet holes in the walls. Her final birthday cake, pink and soft, is still sat in her feed, frozen in a magical moment where nothing was wrong. And also often that's the part that people forget. Sana isn't simply a headline. She shouldn't just be seen as a symbol or as a topic of debate. She was a young woman who wanted to study medicine, to help other girls, to celebrate her culture, and to make videos that just made people smile. Her father said that she was braver than a son. Her mother still calls her name when the house feels too quiet. The events of this video expose a truth that many already knew, but still hoped wasn't real. And that truth is that we live in a world where women and girls can be punished just for saying no.
Anything that's donated now goes to her children. And I just want to say thank you.
Elena had been in a relationship with you for about 4 months. She had recently discovered she was pregnant.
Yeah! Yeah! That's me! You see my face?
It was just after midnight, and most of the building was asleep. There was the kind of silence you only get in a London block, when everyone has finally given up on the day. And then, through that silence, came voices. A man, a woman. And at first it just sounded like an argument. Annoying, maybe, but not unusual. Apartments this close together, people hear everything. Music, TVs, breakups and makeups. But this time, the words felt different. The man's voice was sharp, coming in bursts. The woman's voice sounded thinner, more distant and defeated. One neighbour pressed mute on their own TV. They leant in closer to the wall, and now they could hear it more clearly. The man, amongst other things, was shouting the word pregnant. Then a pause, then the same word again, but louder. On the other side of the wall, the woman's voice now broke through. She said, "I don't want to." The neighbour froze up. This wasn't a normal late-night argument anymore. This sounded like the kind of conversation where something had already gone very wrong. Another neighbour stepped into the hallway and they noticed the sound was coming from one particular flat. Obviously they couldn't see anything, but they could hear a lot. Muffled thuds, raised voices, and then one of the most horrific things you can hear at a time like this: silence. The kind of moment where you can suddenly hear your own breathing. Someone in the hallway pulled out their phone, but it wasn't to call anyone, at least not yet. Instead, they hit record just in case. Because in that moment, they had a feeling that whatever was happening behind that door wasn't simply going to end with an apology and then getting back together. A few minutes later, a couple of neighbours would finally step forward. They walked up to the intercom and pressed the button. When the woman in the flat answered, her voice sounded strange compared to how she normally sounded. It sounded tight and flat. They asked if she was okay. There was a pause. Then she said 2 words that would later haunt them: "I'm fine." And with that, the conversation ended. The neighbours hesitated to act. Nobody kicked in the door, nobody even called the police. Because on the surface, it was still just an argument. It was none of their business, just another couple that would probably be back together by the morning. But behind that door, something had already been set in motion, something that you can't walk back from. And hours later, when the truth finally came out, everyone who'd heard those voices in the hallway would replay that moment over and over. The noises, the haunting word, pregnant, shouts about a baby. They would all be left asking themselves the same question: exactly what had been happening inside that flat while they were standing just a few feet away. 4 months before anyone heard those voices in the hallway, Elena Odysseus was trying to rebuild her life. She was 40, she was soft-spoken, the kind of person who tried to hold everyone else together, even when her own world was falling apart. She had already lived through losses that most people just don't come back from. She had lost 2 partners, both fathers of her children. 2 devastating griefs, stacked on top of each other, and she was forced to bear that weight daily. Friends said that she carried it quietly though. She didn't talk much about what she'd been through. She didn't want pity. She just wanted something simple: a home, a routine, and a safe place for her little girl. By early 2024, she was raising her 2-year-old daughter largely on her own. And even though life wasn't perfect, she was really trying. People close to her said she was the kind of mother who kept every drawing, every little toy, every memory that her daughter touched. Her dream was small, but it was everything to her. A kitchen table big enough for breakfast together, a family feeling once again, a second chance at something steady. So when she met someone new, she wanted to believe that it could work. She wanted to believe that this man could be a partner, a father figure, a fresh start. And for a moment, just a moment, that is how it looked. The new man was attentive, he checked in on her. He said that he cared about her daughter. He talked about their future together, like it was something that he could actually give her. After everything that she'd survived, this felt like genuine warmth. It felt like someone was finally seeing her. But nobody knew, not yet, that inside those early conversations were the first tiny cracks. The ones that people miss because they look so much like affection at the start. A text message that seemed sweet but came at a strange time. A question that sounded caring but was pushed for too long. A comment about who she talked to. A question about where she'd been. Little things, perhaps little forgettable things. The kinds of things that people can explain away when they really want a relationship to work. And Elena really wanted this one to be the one. By summer, the 2 of them were officially together. They were about 4 months in. And that's when Elena discovered that she was pregnant. For her, this wasn't a fear. This was hope. Maybe this was a family that she'd been trying to rebuild. But with that hope came a shift. A subtle building pressure in the air any time he came around. Elena's friends noticed it first. A tired sound in her voice. A hesitation when I asked how things were going. She waved it off, said everything was fine. But those same friends would later remember one moment. One sentence that she said under her breath. in the kind of tone you use when you finally admit something that you wish wasn't true. He's acting different. But at that stage, they didn't know exactly what she meant. They didn't know that this new relationship, the one that she'd hoped would give her a new beginning, was already shifting into something else, something darker, something hidden behind closed doors. And the rules of that new reality were about to reveal themselves one by one. This new man laid down some ground rules. The first rule was that he wanted her to answer his calls, and I mean all of them, day or night. And at first this could have sounded like just concern. He said he just wanted to hear her voice, that he worried when she didn't pick up. But those calls got more frequent, then constant, then demanding. If she missed one, even by a second, there were questions. Where was she? Who was she with? Why didn't she pick up? Soon it wasn't just enough for her to answer. She had to answer on video. She had to show her surroundings. It was her job to prove that she was alone, to prove that she wasn't hiding anything. Friends later said that now they knew that something was wrong, but Elena didn't see it yet. She had been through so much loss that she perhaps convinced herself this was about love. About someone caring too much, not too little. The second rule came next. She told a friend that he didn't like her talking to people, and I mean anyone at all. Male friends were deleted from her phone first, then acquaintances, then any contacts that he didn't realise. He told her that it made him uncomfortable. He told her that he didn't want other men sniffing round. He said it like it was a bit of a joke, but it didn't feel like one. And then came the arguments. Little disagreements would erupt. Nothing physical at first, just a mounting pressure on Elena, raised volumes as things got heated, and accusations that really made no sense. Her sister noticed it, the tension in Elena's messages, the way that she'd type, pause, delete sentences, before then sending something short and safe. Her sister tried to pull her back. She told her that she deserved better, told her that love wasn't supposed to feel like this. But Elena kept on defending him. She said that he was stressed, said he'd been through things, said that he promised that he'd change. And 4 months in, she still believed him, still hoped that he could become the man that she thought he was back at the beginning. But then came the incident with the toys, Elena's daughter's toys. They were thrown out or destroyed in an argument. Tiny plastic reminders of her child's world were shattered, all because he was angry, all because he was unhappy. Elena did tell a few people about this, quietly though, almost whispering, as if speaking it too loudly would make it more real. And that's when fear finally slipped into her voice. Once, just once, she confided to someone that she trusted, "I'm scared of him." But fear can be complicated. It doesn't always push people away. Sometimes it makes them hold on tighter, hoping that the storm will pass, and that the person they fell for will just come back. Despite every warning sign and every whispered concern, every moment that just didn't feel right, Elena stayed. She wanted her family. She wanted that stability. She wanted a love to finally last. But the rules that she never agreed to were now stacking up around her. They were closing her in. They were quietly preparing the path to that night in the hallway when neighbours heard words that they would never forget. By late July, the tension in Elena's flat, it could no longer be ignored. Friends said her messages had changed. They were shorter and flatter in tone. He was acting up, she wrote, but she didn't explain exactly what that meant. Her sister, everyone told her, "You deserve so much better." But Elena would respond, "Can't help who you love, but he don't love any of us." Nobody really knew what to do with that reply. No one knew just how close to the breaking point things had gotten. Then came the night that everything collided. It was supposed to be something simple. He came over to help her move some furniture. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. But in controlling relationships, it's often not the big things that ignite the worst moments. It can be the smallest spark, a misplaced comment, a look, or in this case, a pair of trainers. The couple argued over them. The kind of disagreement that most people would laugh off when they realised it was all just dumb. But in that flat, on that night, it grew into something much bigger, something much sharper, something that even the neighbours couldn't ignore. Sometime after midnight, the building started to wake. Through the walls came the sound of a man shouting. The same word repeated like a hammer. Pregnant, pregnant. Then her voice, thin, desperate, barely breaking into the hallway. I don't want to kill my baby. Those words made one neighbour sit up, made another step into the corridor, made someone else pick up their phone. They didn't know exactly what was happening in that apartment, but they knew that this was not normal. Not anymore. Voices rose, objects hit walls, something slammed hard enough to shake a picture frame next door, and then came that horrifying silence. A couple living down the hall looked at each other. One said, "We should check." The other nodded. They approached the intercom outside the flat and pressed the button. A long pause, then finally her voice. Except it didn't sound like Elena. Not the version of her they'd heard laughing in the stairwell. Not the gentle mother they'd seen carrying a toddler on her hip. This voice sounded hollow, automatic, a performance of calm. She said, "I'm fine." 2 words, no details, no real reassurance. And then the line went dead. The neighbours stepped back, they looked at each other and waited. But no one really made a move, nobody knocked again. Because, in reality, people are taught to stay out of other people's private arguments. They're taught not to assume the worst. They're taught to hope that by morning, everything will be normal again. What they didn't know though was that inside that flat, during those final minutes of silence, something irreversible had unfolded. Something that would soon spill out of the front door, in a way that no one could have imagined. And by the time that truth finally came out, the hallway, the voices, the argument about trainers, none of it would make sense without one chilling detail that was just waiting behind that locked door. Early the next morning, 3 a.m., July the 22nd, just as the sun was thinking about rising, it would illuminate the true horrors of what had happened. It sounded to the neighbours that the argument had ended the night before, that everything had simmered down, and it would just blow over. But police officers would later find a red handprint just outside Elena's front door. It was her handprint, and it was in her own vital fluids. She had tried to escape, to survive. She had desperately pulled herself out of her home, and she had made it outside. But what was discovered on that morning would deal a devastating blow. Members of the public found Elena laying on the floor. She was clutching her right-hand side. She was covered in red, and so was her partner, Shane. However, he was not injured. As she lay there, she shouted, "Shane stabbed me. He stabbed me. He stabbed me. Help, help." Shane was still there at the scene. However, as the members of the public called 999 for help, he took this opportunity to flee. Meanwhile, on the cold hard floor, Elena, 1 month pregnant, her time on this earth drew to a close as paramedics tried to save her. She had wounds to her chest, stomach, pelvis, shoulders, buttocks, right arm, thighs and lower legs. The coroner said that each one alone would have been enough to do the irreversible, but there were nearly 20 sharp impacts in total. It was like he had tried to remove the baby himself. As Shane walked away, he sent his mother a voice note. In fact, he sent her this very voice note.
"I just killed someone and I need to go back to jail. Mom, I just killed a woman and I'm going back to jail."
He then threw his phone in a drain, later recovered by police. And then at 4:41 a.m, he strolled up to the Cream's Cafe in Walthamstow, and the staff noticed him immediately. They didn't notice him because they recognised him, instead because he was covered, his clothes stained and his hands marked. He had a strange distant look on his face, his mannerisms making them feel uneasy. And then the man said something that no one in that shop was prepared to hear. He told them he'd killed his wife and child. The room fell silent. One person stepped back. Another reached for their phone. The staff called 999 and the man didn't stop them. He didn't try to leave. And when armed officers arrived, he just laughed. Actually laughed. He told them, "I killed her." Then he added, "Send me to jail where I belong." He called himself a sickhead. He called himself scum. And as they took him away, he just kept on talking. On the drive to the station, which I will show you in just a moment, his thoughts seemed to twist in every direction. He said that he hoped she wasn't gone, that he hoped that the baby was still alive. But then, in the same breath, he reminded officers that he told her to get rid of the pregnancy, and his words were just spilling out like he wasn't even sure which version of himself he was supposed to be.
Yeah! I don't regret nothing. Yeah? Give me the death chamber. Yeah? That's what I want. A lethal injection and put me out of my misery. Yeah? And let me just drop this job. Either way, it doesn't bother me. I'm devil's picnic. Yeah? There's a place for me now in hell. Thank you. Thank you to the kind officers. Thank you. We cool this. Yeah?
Everything's cool. We're recorded in the van, sir.
I don't ever want to come up. Keep me in there. Keep me in jail. Anyway, I want my grave in a jail. Yeah? Yeah! That's me. You see my face? Yeah! Yeah! I'm a demon. Yeah! Yeah!
At one point, he gave himself a new name entirely. Shane, Michael, Evil, March. And he urged officers to broadcast that to the world. Exactly what he'd done. But all Shane was saying was words, and we'd have to wait until the courtroom, when he finally spoke through his lawyers, to hear the story that the people overhearing in the hallway had no idea was happening behind that door. Because this case, it still held two massive twists.
Hi everyone. I don't usually do this, but I'm sure some of you will have seen the Walthamstow London news. My sister was the woman that was fatally to death last night. Sorry, this is hard for me. My sister's name was Elena Yates. Her married name was Elena Odysseus. She was a mother. She had two beautiful girls, Lexi and Victoria. We, the family, are so saddened by the news. I just want any people to come forward. We already have the person in police custody, but if anybody knows anything or might have witnessed anything that could help us put this man in jail for the rest of his life and get justice for Elena Yates, please let me know. Thank you for listening. Hey guys. Gosh, it's been a hot day, hasn't it? I know I look like you don't have to tell me. I just wanted to say again, thank you to everybody who's shared, donated and who supported us in our fight to bring Elena home. The funeral's going to be on the 29th of August and I just want to say thank you again, because without you guys we wouldn't have been able to do this, and poor Elena's wishes wouldn't have been able to have been met if it wasn't for you. Now, obviously I really want to talk about the case and everything that actually really happened to Elena, but unfortunately while we're waiting for the trial to take place in May next year, I am on a bit of a hold with the police, so I can't really speak out yet. But I just want you to keep following, because next year I will, and I will make sure that he gets the... I'll make sure he gets what he deserves. Love you all. Hey everyone, as you know, today I was going to the funeral directors to discuss everything that we were planning for Elena's funeral. We've hit a bit of an issue, so I got quoted a lot less than what they told us today. So now we're going to have to fork out just to get her also buried in Newmarket on top of all the other things for the funeral, and it's going to come to about £9,000. Now, Obviously, thank you so much to all of you that have donated, shared, done everything you can so far. I mean, at the minute we're sitting on 4,159. Obviously, we are trying to band together and sell our own things so that we can try and build up the rest of the funds. But I'm just asking if there's still anybody out there who can help. You know, we would be so, so grateful. We really would. Lots of love to you all. Speak to you soon. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has donated and who has shared and who has followed my sister's story. And we managed. Oh, sorry. After my BBC interview today, we've managed to raise £6,400 something pounds. And we needed £6,116. Thank you. Anything that's donated now goes to her children. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I love you so much, all of you. Because we can finally bury her near our nanny. And we've brought her home. I went to see her yesterday in the Chapel of Rest. It was so traumatic because it's been 2 weeks since she's passed, but I needed to see her, guys. I needed to say goodbye. And with the help, your help, we wouldn't have been able to do it. We wouldn't have been able to bring her home. And I love you so much. The whole family does. Thank you. Hey guys, I know I've been a bit MIA lately, but I've just been struggling with everything up in my head since everything with Elena. We've got the funeral on Thursday at 12 p.m. in Newmarket. I just wanted to say thank you again, everybody that made this possible so that we could bring Elena home. Sorry I haven't been as chatty and that to everybody lately. Just not in a good place right now. Hey everyone, so today's the day. It's Elena's funeral. I just wanted to say thank you one last time for all the help you've given us, for helping us raise the money so that we could make today possible, and say goodbye to our beloved Elena. Thanks guys, love ya.
When the trial finally opened, the weight bearing down on the room was crushing. People now realised what Elena had lived through long before that final night. Prosecution didn't start with the crime, they started with her, who she was, what she'd endured, and what she'd been so desperately trying to build. They described a woman who had lost 2 partners, who was raising a 2-year-old child, and who wanted, more than anything, a safe and loving home. They described how she fell for him, how fast it all moved, how she believed in his promises, and then they walked the court through the truth, the control, the constant video calls, the forced deletions, the fear that she confided to friends, the smashed glass, and the threats sent in voice notes that Shane never thought for a second would be played back in a courtroom. Piece by piece, the world that she lived in came into focus. A world where she tried to love someone who treated that love like possession. You see, what had actually happened here was truly tragic. Elena was pregnant with Shane's child, but he did not want to be a father. He pushed Elena to get an abortion, but she wanted the baby, the family, the dream. But his wants and his control would not allow that. The prosecutor paused. They let the words settle in, and then they said the words that caused several people in the jury box to shift in their seats. She was vulnerable, and all she wanted was to be loved. As for him, when it was his turn, he didn't deny being responsible, at least not fully. Something else came to light too. Something that not everyone knew. This new information would form an even more disturbing backdrop to the case, because what happened to Elena, it seemed like an echo from Shane's disturbing past. You see, through all of this, Shane was already a convicted murderer. Yes, already at the time that he met Elena. Shane March had previously been convicted of the murder of Andre Drummond. Shane was 21 at the time and Andre was 17. He jabbed Andre through the neck, and he was then sentenced to life imprisonment in July of 2000. But of course, life does not mean life in the UK. And so after years in custody, he was then released on licence in early 2013. But to make things even worse, and I mean to make things unbelievably worse, what happened to Elena was really history repeating itself, because Shane was recalled later on a year of his release, following a DV attack on a pregnant partner. He was then jailed once again, but released once again in February of 2018. So his history of extreme violence, including the attack on a pregnant partner, it really makes you wonder just how this could even happen.
Hey everyone, it's a bit frustrating. Obviously we were all expecting for his plea hearing to be today, but we've just had the phone call to say that it's been delayed until Friday. Hopefully Friday we will know more. Hey guys, I'm really frustrated now. We were waiting all day. He was meant to be in court at 2:45. And apparently the people who they employ to pick them up from the prison didn't pick him up. So now we've got to wait until November, the 18th of November, just to find out if he's going to plead guilty or not guilty. This is getting really ridiculous now, like it's just dragging it out unnecessarily, causing us even more pain. We just want to know, and we just want justice for Elena. Hey guys. I just wanted to give you all an update and let you know that the plea hearing is tomorrow. My anxiety's through the roof. Obviously, I know he's probably going to plead not guilty. But I just hope this is going to be the first step to getting justice for Elena. Sorry I haven't been on much recently. My mental health has just been so bad. I'll just keep you updated as and when I hear. Hey everyone, again I can't really say much like other times, but we finally got a plea yesterday. It wasn't the plea that we wanted, we were hoping it would be a guilty plea, but unfortunately he pled not guilty. So now we will be going to trial, and it will be on the 6th of October, hopefully no more delays and stuff like what we've had so far, but we're going to have our day in court.
Now in court for Elena's demise, Shane denied the intent behind what he did. He refused the word murder. Instead, on the first day of his trial, he entered a plea of manslaughter by diminished responsibility. This was a legal pivot and narrowing of accountability, a final attempt to shift the narrative of what had happened. He did admit to causing her death. He admitted that he'd done the unthinkable, but he claimed that he hadn't meant to end her life. But the twists just keep on coming. Shane March then made a decision that shocked everyone involved. After pleading not guilty to murder and opting for manslaughter, he now pleaded guilty to murder. And in a move that doesn't sound possible, for the second time in his life, the judge sentenced him to life in prison. This time they set a minimum term of 42 years, before eligibility for any release. But honestly, who knows anymore?
Hi everyone. I wasn't planning on coming on here, to be honest, today, because I'm still trying to just overcome everything from what we've heard at the trial and then sentencing yesterday. But it's come to my attention that people are still victim blaming my sister after hearing everything about what a monster Shane March is. So I want to put it out there and I want to set the record straight. My sister was lied to. She was gaslighted, manipulated. If Elena knew that he had gone and willingly murdered somebody, she would never have been with him. Elena was lied to. Elena was told that he was being mugged, that somebody jumped him with a knife, and that he accidentally stabbed them because he was trying to wrestle the knife away. Now, how would you feel, all you internet trolls? How would you feel if that was your daughter, your sister, your mother? And you have to sit there and read such vile, horrible comments. My sister was a good mother. She was an amazing sister to me, Lorraine and Tara. And she was an amazing daughter. Now, I'd really like for people to reflect. Because victim blaming is wrong. And you're just as bad as him, in my eyes. Hey guys, I got a bit of nice news today, which has made me feel a little bit better about everything that's been going on at the moment. So I got contacted today by a worker at Walthamstow Council, and they've decided they're going to do a memorial garden in memory of Elena, and we're all going to get involved, and hopefully including the neighbours, Elena's friends and the children that lived there, that she was close to. And we're going to make, obviously, the space outside her home where she died into a really nice sort of like memorial garden. We're going to do like flowers, maybe even get a little bench. And because Elena loved robins, we're going to get a plant that especially attracts robins, so that it's like a piece of Elena will always be there. I just wanted to share that with you because I just thought, out of all this horribleness and everything with the delays, the plea hearing, that's just something that's a little bit nicer, something to focus on at the moment, and hopefully that'll be going ahead next month. Hope you're all doing well. Speak soon.
Elena's sister has been pivotal in setting up a community garden in her sister's memory, and so in some small way Elena lives on, and hopefully that garden will provide a peace that Elena couldn't find in life.
Hey guys, I know I've been quiet recently since we found out, when the next trial was going to be, but I just wanted to come on really quickly and just ask once again for your help. I've made a petition online. It's on change.org, and it's where I'm trying to create an Elena's Law, and it's going to list a whole different range of topics that really need to be implemented by the government, and to make things better and raise awareness, especially for our children, so that they can spot signs early for when they start going into relationships. So I'm just hoping that you guys can help and sign, share it. I just really want to get this in front of Parliament. I do not want anything like this to happen again. It's just not fair. She should still be here. She would have had her baby by now. So I'm stuttering now. We just need to make change. Thank you for helping.
The body was discovered in the backyard of an Akron woman who's been missing now for more than a month.
I'm looking back at text messages thinking, I'm feeling guilty.
Very loving person, always smiling, give you the shirt off her back.
Akron Police, just come outside. How you doing? Is Martha here? She's probably at her boyfriend's house.
A ring of bricks in a quiet backyard on Crouse Street. Ordinary and pretty unimportant. But on a warm September afternoon in Akron, Ohio, something about it felt wrong. Robin's family had been searching for her for weeks. Phone calls went unanswered. Doctor's appointments were missed. Flyers were now stuck to anything that would hold a staple. But still, no news. So the family came back here, to the one place they felt that something was wrong. They walked into the backyard, and that's when they saw it. A bed of ash in that same fire pit. But the ash wasn't settled how it should be. It shifted too easily, like it had been disturbed already. And sitting amongst it was a burnt piece of paper. Angela, Robin's cousin, picked it up carefully. The edges were curled and blackened, but the center of the page had survived the flame, and printed on it there was a single word, Jehovah. And that is when this story goes from bad to worse, because that one single word told a horrifying story that was 18 years in the making. Before the events of this video, there was Robin, a person like you or I. Martha Robin Freitag was a mom. She was a daughter, a sister, a cousin, and a friend. The kind of person who smiled with her whole face. The kind of person that would literally give you the shirt off of her back. If a neighbour needed help moving furniture, Robin was there. If a friend needed a place to crash, Robin found a pillow and made up the couch. If a stranger needed a bus schedule or directions, Robin would take the time to walk them halfway there. She didn't have too much materially, but what she did have, she shared. Robin was incredibly smart, and at one time she'd even been part of Mensa. That's the group for people who score in the top 2% on IQ tests. However, even with these results, she never bragged about it. Her intelligence showed up in quiet ways, in the way that she could fix a curtain rod with whatever tools were lying around, in how she could stretch a tight budget just far enough, and her creativity filled the little house on Crouse Street. She loved sewing. She made whimsical curtains for every room, patterns that didn't quite match on purpose. They were fun, loud, and chaotic. She painted the rooms herself, picking colours that made the place feel warm even on a grey Ohio day. Out the back of the house, she'd set up a simple little kingdom for her grandson, a tree fort, a trampoline, a yard where he could just be a kid and have fun. And always by her side was Sammy, her giant old black Labrador. He was clumsy, loyal, a little slow, and he absolutely adored her. Robin was also deeply spiritual. She studied the Bible on Sundays with Jehovah's Witnesses. She treated her Bible like it was a living friend, a guide. She was careful with the pages. She made notes in the margins. She never left it lying around on the floor. She never mistreated it. So when her cousin later saw that burnt scrap with Jehovah on it, everyone who knew Robin understood what that meant. Robin's home was her sanctuary, her canvas, her safe place. But in 2018, something else was living inside that house too. Something that rotted the home from the inside out. By late July of 2018, something felt off. Robin was not answering her phone. She wasn't replying to text messages. She wasn't showing up for her usual routines. At first, her daughter Kim tried to rationalize it. Maybe mom's phone died. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she's mad at me. But then, those days turned into a week. And then 2, and then longer. Still no word. And for Robin, who always stayed in touch, who always kept her appointments, who always showed up, this really wasn't normal. Not even close. Her neighbours hadn't seen her either. Friends no longer heard from her. Even the doctor's offices that she visited regularly had called the police, worried that she'd stopped attending her appointments. Everyone was feeling it. Robin had gone quiet. Far too quiet. Kim finally reported her missing on September the 5th. Her voice cracked when she told police her fears. My mom's boyfriend. I'm afraid he did something to her.
Akron Police, just come outside. How you doing? Is Martha here?
No, she's probably at her boyfriend's house.
What's your name, bud?
David.
David Callahan? All right, come on down here for me. Just have a seat if you would. Why do you think she's at her boyfriend's house?
Oh, that's where she stays most of the time.
Where's that at?
I don't know. I don't even know who it is, really. I mean,
Are you the only one here?
Me and the dog, yeah.
You and the dog?
I mean, she's here maybe a couple times a week anymore. I mean, we've actually been split up for a year. We've been in separate bedrooms for the last year. I mean, she's schizophrenic. She's been on and off her medication I don't know how many times. You know what I mean? Everything's top secret. I guess her and her daughter's fighting again.
604 to computer. Well, that's part of the reason we're out here, because no one in her family's talked to her since July.
I don't know how. I know she's texted her.
No, she hasn't.
Times. If she has another phone besides that. It's nice.
Well, who are you getting text from?
Huh?
Who are you getting text from?
Her? She has a. I mean, I see her very randomly here. You know, the house is in her name. We got the house 8 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I'm making arrangements to move on slow but sure. I just don't have the money. You know what I mean? I'm trying to. Like I said, I know she's seeing somebody else. I've dated.
What's his name?
I don't even know. I've never met him.
Where does he live at?
I don't know. I have no idea.
What, does he live in Akron?
I would think so.
You would think so. But you don't know.
No, I don't.
Is she in Ohio?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes.
When's the last time you talked to her?
I don't know, probably, say 5-6 days ago, maybe.
Where was that at?
That was here.
She stopped up
I
here?
just see her in passing. I was leaving and she came out.
Yeah. It's her.
When police checked the home after the missing person report, they found nothing. No Robin, no signs of forced entry, nothing that was obviously wrong. But at that time, they had no idea that the truth was only a few yards away. And so police kept on searching. The family kept on calling, and time kept on passing. The silence around Robin grew heavier, until one day, the family went to the one place that police had never quite looked at closely enough. That was the backyard, and what they found would change everything. Crouse Street isn't a typical neighbourhood, at least not anymore. Once, decades ago, it was a full street lined with family homes. There were kids riding bikes. It was a tight-knit pocket of Akron's Middlebury area. But over the years, the street thinned out, houses were demolished, and the once peaceful area was now plagued by noise from Route 8. By 2018, only 2 houses remained on Robin's end of the road, 2 old structures built in the 1890s. 2 survivors from a whole other era, standing side by side like forgotten monuments. And now both of these houses had recently been touched by tragedy. Just a few months before Robin disappeared, the house next door, 600 Crouse Street, went up in flames. An elderly woman, Gertrude Stoberman, perished inside. Her daughter insisted that something about the fire felt strange. There were things missing from the home. Windows mysteriously unboarded the very next day. Items tossed around the burned-out house, as if someone had been inside afterwards. Police closed the case quickly, blaming an accidental fire. But neighbours were uneasy. There was a sense of something unfinished, questions unanswered, and that strange tension seemed to stretch across both properties. The whole cul-de-sac felt as though it was holding its breath. And now Robin's family felt it too, every time they searched the area. The overgrown brush surrounding the property, the industrial scrapyard humming nearby, the strange silence of a street that was once full of life. They now walked those sidewalks, with the missing posters in hand. They taped and stapled them to telegraph poles and bus stops, several to the front of Robin's own home. But now those posters proved useless, and they just fluttered in the wind like red flags. Something bad had happened, and it had happened nearby. Meanwhile, crisis intervention teams kept on returning to 606 Crouse Street, carrying out welfare checks. 5 or 6 visits in total. Sometimes a house was locked, sometimes it was open, but each time nothing seemed out of place. Nothing screamed danger, and none of these officers thought to examine the backyard fire pit either. It was just the fire pit, something that almost every house on this road had. Nothing unusual about it, but the people who knew Robin well could feel that something was just wrong. That atmosphere on Crouse Street was growing worse, and they really had a feeling that Robin was close. Everybody could feel it. At that time, they just didn't know how close. It would take just one more search, led not by the police but by family, to finally break the agonizing stalemate, because the truth was waiting. On September the 9th, the family gathered in the Middlebury neighbourhood once again. It was raining on that day, a slow, steady drizzle that soaked the missing person flyers until the ink bled. But in spite of the weather, nobody went home, not when Robin was still missing. They searched until their shoes were caked in mud. They canvassed the empty lots that used to be family homes. And all the while, they talked about one person, a person that everyone suspected, David Callahan. because just days earlier, the family had learned something unsettling. David wasn't out causing trouble. He was already in Summit County Jail, but on charges unrelated to this case. 3 days later, on September the 12th, Robin's cousin Angela asked the family to gather once again. It was that feeling about the house that just kept pulling at her, a feeling that she couldn't explain, but it was a whisper of intuition that she just could not ignore. When they arrived at the house, they noticed something strange. Scattered across the yard were small piles of disturbed dirt, small things that hadn't been there before. They suggested that perhaps someone had been digging in the dirt. It had got stuck to their shoes and then fallen off across the lawn. To the family, though, it appeared odd, unsettling, and out of place. They started poking around in the yard, digging small holes, just testing the soil, the layers, the texture. But they still weren't actually making any progress in the search. Angela became frustrated and emotional, so much so that she looked up at the sky and said softly, "Robin, we need a sign, please." At that time, she didn't know she was only inches away, just a few steps from the fire pit, just a short walk from the truth. Because hidden beneath those ashes, beneath the burnt paper, beneath the cold dirt, was everything they'd been searching for. The next morning, September the 13th, 2018, the family returned to Robin's house with a clearer purpose. This time they approached the fire pit. It wasn't large, just a few feet across, a circle of bricks, the kind of thing that people use for weekend bonfires. Something ordinary in this area, something that nobody had questioned until now. Angela stepped towards it first, and she nudged the ashes with her shoe, and she felt that they shifted too easily, like something had been hidden beneath them. And then she saw it, a scrap of burnt paper that she hadn't noticed the day before. She picked it up. The edges were blackened and curled, but one word survived the flames: Jehovah. This must have been Robin's Bible, her most protected, cherished belonging, and now burned. Angela's voice trembled. Robin would never let anyone burn her Bible. Never, she said. She dropped to her knees, and then the others joined her, brushing away the ash with their hands. Softly at first, and then faster, more frantic. They didn't find the compacted soil of a normal yard. Instead, freshly turned over soil, with a thin layer of rocks and ashes on top, almost like someone had tried to disguise a disturbance. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, what is this?" And within minutes, the family realized they had found something far beyond just a clue, something they had been praying that they wouldn't find. They called the police and backed away. Then they waited.
You tell me. Well, here's the deal. Highly suspicious. Seems like a body part. But we didn't want to dig it out anymore till you guys got here. Yeah.
41.
But I think all of us would want it dug out a little bit more before you guys can say.
41, you copy.
Yeah, well, let's check.
Was it dug out when you guys got here?
That guy.
What made him, did he say what made him start digging?
Yeah, he gave the whole story to the other officer and us. But,
Soon, investigators arrived. Crime scene tape went up. Neighbours watched from their windows and reporters gathered on the sidewalk. Then a team of forensic anthropologists from Mercyhurst University were called in, specialists in carefully recovering buried remains. They set up screens, small tools in hand, evidence markers, and slowly, methodically, they sifted through the ashes. They packed away the burned pages. They cleared the soil layer by layer until one of them stopped. And in the quiet backyard, beneath grey Ohio skies, a voice finally broke through. We found something. By afternoon, investigators had uncovered a body, situated in a shallow grave beneath that fire pit. The family stood across the street, numb. Hours later, the Summit County medical examiner confirmed the truth. The remains indeed belonged to Martha Robin Freitag. Robin had been at home the entire time, just feet away from the place that she built with so much love, hidden in a backyard where she once planted flowers, where she decorated fences, and watched her grandson playing. And now the question became unavoidable. Who put her there, and why?
The Summit County Medical Examiner and Akron Police working tonight to answer a lot of questions, including who was the person buried in the backyard? Was this a murder? And if so, who's the killer? Anthropologists, along with a forensic scene recovery team from Mercyhurst University, called to a backyard on Krause Street in Akron to methodically dig up and document human remains buried in a fire pit. Charles Long, who works across the street,
it startled us. We couldn't believe it.
Was saddened by what appeared to be an intense, taped-off crime scene.
Oh, it's shocking. I mean, to think it's right here, you know? I mean, that's amazing to us that it would be that close to home.
The digging took place at the home of 53-year-old Robin Freitag. Her family reported her missing last week, stating no one had heard from Robin in more than a month. Missing person flyers posted on her front door and on telephone poles. Police say her disappearance was already on their radar.
We've came out, we've checked the property on more than one occasion, even prior to the report being taken. We've had calls from doctors' offices saying that she didn't show up for appointment. It was unusual. Could you go out and check the welfare?
But nothing suspicious was found at the house until a family member searching the backyard yesterday found a body in the fire pit. Police are not following any other leads on Robin's whereabouts, but it's too early to tell if the unearthed remains are hers.
And that is obviously a critical component for us to identify this individual and to let the next of kin know for certain that this is their loved one.
By mid-afternoon, the remains were transported to the Summit County Medical Examiner's office. Tonight, police not naming any suspects, but they're treating the case as a homicide.
Well, of course, we're going to treat it as a suspicious death and potential homicide at this point, but until we have a chance to really examine the remains, we don't know exactly what we're dealing with.
Investigators say it could take days to positively identify the human remains, even weeks if DNA testing is needed. In Akron, Bob Jones.
The Summit County Medical Examiner determined that Robin's time was ended from blunt force trauma to the head. It was phrased in filings as a deliberate and violent impact. This was not an accident, and according to prosecutors, only one other person was in the house with her that night. Once Robin's remains were identified, investigators could move quickly. The timeline that they uncovered was chilling. Robin had last been heard from on July the 31st, 2018. Her digital footprint began slowing down at around the same time, and then by early August, family couldn't reach her at all. David Callahan was 52 years old. He had a long criminal record, a history of substance offences, and a man who, by all public accounts, seemed to habitually orbit generally bad stuff. But Robin, gentle, hopeful Robin, had always tried to help him. Even when they were no longer in a relationship, she let him stay in her home. She believed that he just needed support. She believed that she could fix him. But the warning signs really were there. A crisis intervention team had been called to the house on at least 5 or 6 times in the previous year. Once, Robin told the team that David had locked himself in an upstairs room, and when police tried to talk to him, he jumped out of the second-story window and then ran. Another time, she reported that he threatened her, but she never followed through with those charges. And it seems that this wasn't out of fear, but because she didn't want to ruin his life. And it would be that choice, the choice to protect him, that would end up being one of the darkest twists in this story. He and Robin had been together on and off for years, nearly 18 years in total, as confirmed by some family members. But by 2018, their relationship was strained and extremely toxic. They lived in the same house but were no longer together. By mid-September, as the search for Robin intensified, David landed in jail on an unrelated charge. He said nothing about Robin's disappearance, but he couldn't hide the truth forever, because when the family uncovered the fire pit, when detectives saw the state of the burial, when investigators pieced together the timeline, every single sign pointed towards David Callahan. What came next would bring Robin's family face to face with David in a courtroom and bring the case to its final breaking point. After Robin's body had been found, everything moved quickly. David Callahan, already sitting in the Summit County Jail on those unrelated charges, was now officially accused of the crime. Police brought him into a courtroom on murder, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and DV. He showed little to no emotion. He stared forwards and kind of softly scowled, not a single flicker of remorse. Robin's family filled the courtroom, sitting shoulder to shoulder. Some held tissues, some held hands, all held grief. They could not have predicted what was coming next. For months, the case built quietly behind the scenes. Investigators documented the fire pit excavation. Anthropologists delivered their findings. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death. And the evidence, both physical and digital, stacked up. David's trial was scheduled for March 27, 2019. But something unexpected happened that morning. Instead of a long and intense trial, his hearing shifted into a plea. David now pled guilty to all major charges, not taking a deal for a lighter crime, and no attempt to claim innocence on any level. Just a shocking and sudden admission. Even then, he barely reacted. There were no apologies, no tears, no nothing. Prosecutors would later say that on August the 6th, that is when David attacked her, and instead of calling for help, instead of saving the family any more pain, he tried his best to conceal what had happened. For weeks afterwards, police believed that David tried to maintain the illusion that Robin was still alive. Family members said that he even cruelly impersonated Robin online, sending out a message from her Facebook account. However, this message did not sound like her, and her loved ones instantly recognized that something was wrong. Robin's family, they had now waited to be heard for months, and at sentencing on May 6, 2019, they finally got their chance to speak. Robin's daughter Amy stepped up first. Her voice shook. She said her relationship with her mother had been strained in recent years, something that she'd hoped to fix, but now something she'll never get the chance to repair. I don't think anybody wants to be out in the world with somebody like this, she said. He's a predator to everybody. Robin's cousin Angela told the court about finding that charred Bible page, the moment that she realized that something was terribly wrong. She would never allow someone to burn her Bible, she said. Then came David's own sister, Pam Steele, and her words cut through the courtroom. He has no remorse about killing her, she said. She told the judge that she wished her brother had to watch, every year, the video of Robin's body being exhumed, to feel the weight of what he'd done. I love my brother, she said through tears. But Robin had an awesome heart, and she thought she could fix him. It led to her demise.
Police, the victim's family, and even members of his own family are blaming this guy for her death, 52-year-old David Culligan.
How dark do you have to be? How demonized do you have to be to take your loved one's life like that?
That's Pam Steele. She's Culligan's sister. Steele says she's known Freitag for 15 years as her brother's girlfriend, and she was like part of the family.
She was very creative. She was forever doing things in her house, making curtains, painting rooms.
Steele says she hasn't talked to her brother for nearly a year, but still had a strong relationship with Freitag. She blames herself for not noticing the signs.
I'm looking back at text messages thinking, I'm feeling guilty. I'm thinking she's, it wasn't like she would call me up or text me and said that she was being abused. She would just say they'd be in an argument and he's really mad and he's like getting in my face.
Finally, Judge Alison Brew delivered her final decision, life in prison. There would be the possibility of parole after 18 years, which is just 3 years more than the minimum. The court was silent. Some cried, some nodded, some simply stared at the man who had taken so much, yet still didn't seem to care. And even as David was being led out in handcuffs, Robin's story still wasn't defined by what he did. It was defined by what would come next. After the sentencing, Robin's family stepped out of the courthouse into the cool May air, exhausted, relieved, but still grieving. Justice had been served, at least in a legal sense, but nothing could bring back the woman that they loved. Nothing could undo what had happened in that little house on Crow Street. And yet, in the weeks that followed, something beautiful did happen. On September the 16th, months after she was found, Robin's family and friends gathered again, this time not to search, but instead to celebrate.
Friends and family gather tonight to say goodbye. Candles still burning in her honor, and family tells me they still can't believe she's gone. They wore her favorite colors and shared some emotional words.
It was impossible not to love her.
As they mourned the death of Martha Robin Freitag.
Very loving person, always smiling, give you the shirt off her back if it was her last one.
Friends and family of Freitags came out by the dozen Sunday night to say goodbye, and they finished their tribute with a balloon release.
They wore her favourite colours. They shared stories about her, how she sewed the curtains that made the house into a home, how she painted the rooms in bright, hopeful shades, how she so loved her dog Sammy, and how she lit up around her grandson. Dozens of balloons, pink, blue and white, were released up into the sky. People tilted up their heads, watching them drift higher and higher until they disappeared into the clouds. And for a moment, there was a semblance of peace. Because Robin was not just what happened to her. She was a mother, a daughter, a friend, a soul who injected colour into the world. And that is what her family choose to remember. A woman who loved deeply, gave endlessly, and left a positive mark on every life that she touched. As those balloons rose over Akron, the breeze carried them away from that dead-end street where she once lived, past the backyard where her family fought to bring her home, and out into the quiet Ohio sky. And in that moment, Robin was not simply missed, she was deeply remembered. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.